Hello, everyone. This is Mike Taigman. I am the improvement guide for FirstWatch, and I am here with my colleague and comedic partner, Rob Lawrence, who is an extraordinary leader, and it seems to be plugged into pretty much everything that matters in the world of EMS. And Mary Meeks, the winner of the Jack Stout Fellowship Award for last year. And Rob, do you want to say hi to folks?
Well, hello, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here. And Mike and I, of course, teamed up on conversations that matter during the COVID era. And so we're going to have a conversation. And I think, Mike, this one is certainly going to matter.
I think it does too. I think it does too. And I'm going to just give you a little background, and then we'll bring Mary into the conversation. How's that sound?
Brilliant. Carry on.
Perfect. So this is about the Jack Stout Fellowship. And for those of you who are not familiar with Jack Stout's work, I encourage you to familiarize yourself. His stuff is available on the EMS Museum website. There's a number of different ways where you can kind of access it, but he was really a pioneering thinker when it came to the design of EMS systems. And there really isn't an EMS system that I have visited anywhere on the world, all the way from the West Bank in Palestine to Cincinnati, Ohio, that doesn't have elements of his system design in it. And Jack is one of these easy to quote guys. And one of his quotes was, "A dollar wasted here is not available to be wasted anywhere else." And from the FirstWatch perspective, we feel that investing some dollars in emerging leaders in EMS sets up our future and our world for strong leadership and continued evolution of a world of work and industry, which we have all grown to love. And it's a partnership between the Fitch Foundation with the whole Fitch consulting group and FirstWatch, and we also plug into Prodigy and a number of other partners and colleagues in this. And we have lots of applicants every year. I think last year there was 63, and Mary was the top of the pick, the cream of the crop. So Mary, would you introduce yourself to folks and tell us maybe start with tell us, where do you work and kind of what's your role?
So my name is Mary Meeks. I live in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm the district chief of EMS for Chatham Emergency Services, which serves all of Chatham County. And in Chatham County is beautiful Savannah, Georgia. I've been with the department for about 10 years, and my primary job function is night shift operations.
Night shift.
Night shift.
There's night. You hear the word night shift, and those of us who've worked it immediately fill in the blanks. And it's like there's very little bosses around, so you get to do more things, and there's a certain je ne sais quoi or color or flair that comes with the night shift. And you have like a really a remarkable ability to develop like cohesion and teamwork. And folks say that that's based on some of your leadership philosophies. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So for me as a leader, trust is the currency of the realm. And my team expects me to be present and fully authentic. And for them, that means transparency with daily operations, with responding to calls. They expect and anticipate me to be there. And just showing up is the gift of presence. And being fully present with my team helps us be closer and more authentic and have that honest communication that's critical for unit cohesion.
So showing up is one of those phrases you hear a lot. Can you make that alive and give us an example of something you showed up for that perhaps other leaders might take a lesson from?
It's every single night. It's consistency with showing up. It's always being there. And I'm thinking of like specific examples we've had. We had what initially didn't seem like a critical incident in City Market. It's been about a year ago. We had an elderly gentleman came out of a parking deck into a crowded city square. And initially it didn't seem like a critical incident, but when we started getting a little bit more information, the initial unit said, "Oh, no, we don't need you to show up. I think we've got it under control." Come to find out, we had, I think, about 6 or 8 people seriously injured with a mass casualty evolution. And that ability to show up and recognize that I need to be there for my people is so critically important, because it lets me be the leader I want to be. And to be able to, when we get all of our patients taken care of, I still have my people to take care of. And it's a whole lot easier to empathize and lead when I was standing shoulder to shoulder with you, rather than sitting in my office listening to it on the radio.
That's a great start, Mary. And, the presence is absolutely a part, I think, of being the servant leader. You are there to provide support to your people who are doing a great job. And so I literally interviewed last week, Mike and Mary, the former commandant of the US Marine Corps, and General Bob Neller. Fantastic discussion we had, and that's coming up on another podcast that I do shortly. But the point about presence is there, made at the very, very top, from someone that's had years and years and has led a massive organization. So I think it's a good start. I always go back down to one of my former bosses who believed in MBWA. It's a very similar thing, right? Management by walking about. You've got to be there in the moment, and that's a really cool thing. Now, of course, we've had one previous discussion, the three of us, on a podcast when you were first appointed or first named as the Jack Stout Fellow for this cycle. And I was excited by what you had to say then about your thoughts on leadership. And obviously, for those that didn't catch that, I'm sure we can put it in the notes. But the point being is that you have some real top tips on leading people. And, that's just one. But if you had to name me a few sort of Meek principles, let's call them that, what are those principles that you live your life by and that you lead your life by?
It's funny you say that. I was thinking of actually 2 books. One book I've read, Call Sign Chaos by Jim Mattis, made me think when he mentioned that. And he talks about trust is the currency of the realm. And being trustworthy and being a person of integrity is incredibly important. And that means you speak plainly and you speak truthfully about the situation in front of you. So I think that painful vulnerability and honesty is definitely a leadership principle. There's a couple easy canned answers though but that really do guide my philosophy. I make my bed every morning. I start my day with a win every single day. And it's a small thing, but it sets the tone for the rest of the day. I believe that your care of equipment and your neatness of dress is a direct reflection of how seriously you take your job. So when I arrive onto a scene, there's no question that what I'm about, and it's about business and it's about providing results. Other great leadership principles. Again, it goes back to trust is the currency of the realm. That one is just really stuck in my head as one that's just burned in for me. That no matter what, I have to be trustworthy and I have to be honest.
You channeled your U.S. Marine Corps general. I channeled my U.S. Marine Corps general. There was also a little bit of Admiral McRaven in there as well. About
McRaven's another. Yes,
absolutely.
Love McRaven.
If the first thing you do is make your bed, and absolutely. Yes. But from the discussions that sort of I've had and my life experience, I think it's the fact of building up trust in your team, or training your team first of all until you trust each other. And once you have that mutual trust, then of course you are committed to the mission of getting done whatever it is you're doing. In our case, it's EMS. And I think that those sort of principles that we learn from our leading admirals and generals, and obviously that are being channeled through you, are the right way to go. When you're out there on the streets, and out of the three of us, that's only you. Sorry, this has to be said, Mike. Sorry,
no, it's okay. I'm at work literally right now.
There we go. Yes, you're sitting there with your body-worn camera and your radio, by the way. So we should note that you are one of the very few organizations right now that actually has that system set up, and perhaps
Absolutely.
That's some discussion for later. But when you are there in amongst the guys on the street, how do you approach being the leader but not getting in the way?
What can I do for you, or how can I help? is the going to be the first words out of my mouth when I arrive on a scene to back up somebody or a system, and it goes, and that ripples into every action we take as leaders. What can I do to help? What do you need from me? It's not what do I need from you. My job is to empower you and enable decisions and command at the lowest possible level. You should be able to make a decision, and it's my job to empower you at your level as just even an EMT basic, or some of the EMR firefighters I work with. Empower them at the lowest level of command to make decisions, because I trust you and you trust me. And we have to have that currency and that exchange. And it goes back to, it's not about me. When I show up, it doesn't become the Mary Meeks show. It's, what do you have? Your eyes on target. You know what's there. How do I support you and get to our goal?
That was a great answer. And it was very clear to me from the very first podcast where you, Mike, and I got together that you were a very clear and worthy recipient of the Jack Stout Fellow. And Mike, we can see why Mary was selected. But in terms of selecting the next fellow, what are the criteria? Obviously, we're looking for a clone of Mary, but to go over what we're looking for.
A clone of Mary would be impossible, and
good answer.
And in the spirit of building trustworthiness, I'm sitting here next to an unmade bed, so I want to be transparent.
You're my West Coast dad, though, Mike. You have to be laid back. Somebody has to be.
We have a memo from Admiral McCraven. He said, "Can you fix that straight away?"
There you go. So the thing I think about when I think about people applying for the Jack Stout Fellowship is, what we're looking for is we're looking for people who can kind of be the pioneers of the future. And there's a whole cadre of us. This is my 51st year in EMS. So I am rapidly approaching emeritus status, whatever the heck that means. And Rob, while he is younger than me, has been around for a while. And so when I think about the kind of folks we're looking for, maybe I'll ask you this, Mary, what inspired you to apply for the fellowship in the first place? What was it about it that made you look at it and think, this is for me?
I wanted to do something bigger than my little 643 square miles of Chatham County, Georgia. I wanted to see how EMS is done across the nation, and even with FirstWatch and ASM and Pinnacle, I get to see how it's done across the world. And broadening my view has been deeply transformative. I've always known there's obviously not one right answer of how do we do EMS, but it's been so enriching to see how does the rest of the world tackle pretty much all the same problems. We have the same issues. We have high call volume, low staffing, high turnover, reimbursement. All of those are themes throughout our industry, but we all come about the problems in a different way. And if I can glean a little bit that's working well in Oklahoma and a little bit that's working well in Connecticut, and I can bring it back to Savannah, I've now improved my system.
That I could not have asked for a better answer and kind of advertisement for what we hope the fellowship is like. And part of your fellowship experience includes attending the Pinnacle EMS Leadership Conference that is hosted, led, and sponsored and put on by the Fitch organization, and also participate in either the Ambulance Service Manager course or the Communication Center Manager course. I think you took the ASM course. So let's start with Pinnacle. What was your experience like attending Pinnacle as a fellow?
Pinnacle was a fantastic conference, beautiful location on Marco Island in Florida. That part was absolutely incredible. The biggest struggle I have with Pinnacle is I was thrown into the pond, and which I knew was going to happen, but I wasn't prepared for how much of an imposter I would feel like. And it was no fault of the conference itself, but it was such a challenge for me and such a eye-opening experience to be around so many incredibly qualified industry leaders. These are the very best of the best, and getting to see how they navigate their EMS systems, and even just communicating with each other was a new experience for me. And it was difficult, but incredibly informative.
Actually, carry on the answer. Obviously, that was Pinnacle, but ASM, and it's an interesting discussion or interesting point about that imposter syndrome. We talk about it a lot in EMS, and you are very certainly the real deal, let me tell you. But obviously, you going into ASM with that sort of almost same near peer group. How did you find that? And then how did it evolve into, I would imagine, what's become a fairly comprehensive and tight network for you?
From recognizing some of my perceived roadblocks I had at Pinnacle, I was able to better address them at ASM. And ASM was a phenomenally transformative leadership experience. I felt like I was really able to dig in with both my large, comprehensive peer group and my small groups that we were broke into. And I can't tell you enough of how truly fantastic ASM was for networking and education and working on our group project. It brought out some of our best dynamics. Even in our small group, when we did our research project, we had the challenge of our group leader initially was like, I don't normally lead groups, so I'm going to push myself to lead this group. And that's just one small example of when Chris Kidd in Seattle, Portland, he stepped up to the plate and he made hard decisions, and he asked us to step up and provide quality work. And it was such a rewarding experience to see him getting an opportunity to lead and us the opportunity to follow, which is really hard, by the way, when you put a whole bunch of leaders in one room. That was an interesting layer of ASM that I wasn't quite anticipating, was reminding me how to be a good follower on top of a good leader. And that was a delightful challenge.
I think there's an interesting, again, discussion, webinar about leadership and also followership. Again, another great friend of mine said, a man without leaders is just somebody taking a walk in the park, right? There's nobody following you. So you have to have committed leadership, but also folk that are committed to follow the journey as well. And that's something that I think a leader has to encourage and also maybe not expect, but actually develop. And followership, I think, is an important part of the teams in which we hope to operate successfully in.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned imposter syndrome. I will tell you that doesn't go away. At least for me, I frequently experience that, and I have a theory. It may be just a fantasy on my part, but my theory is that people who never experience imposter syndrome are maybe a little bit too ego-driven and don't understand the reality of the world. That people who experience imposter syndrome are people who are still growing and still a student and still learning and still have places to go, and that when you lose that, maybe it's time to re-examine things and kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself, if you will.
It's funny you say that. We have a recruit school at Chatham EMS, and I finally had time during day shift today to pop in and see them, because normally on night shift, so I don't get to see them very often. And by some happy accident, we have an all-female recruit class. It wasn't intentional. I know. I was so excited. They were a reflection of our community, and having an opportunity to talk with them about being a female leader and what it means to walk in a room and earn respect and attention, and to be the person when you walk in a room, people say, "Oh, thank goodness you're here." And how to develop that command presence. And I explained to them that for the longest time, I had to fake it till I made it. And I think it honestly kind of feeds into the imposter syndrome a little bit. But the fruits of that are, now I know, between my time at Pinnacle and ASM and my leadership experience here in Savannah, that I am qualified. I have earned my seat at the table. And that, do I have a lot to learn? Absolutely. And I want to learn every single day, but my words have meaning and they have worth. And I wanted to impart on them that same sense of ownership and value, that before they know it, they're going to be cleared and on an ambulance, and they're going to be the person who is supposed to know what to do. And that tremendous responsibility and privilege is such a beautiful thing. And sometimes you do have to just stand up and take a deep breath and put your shoulders back and say, I did it, and I'm here to help. And it was so great getting to see all of them today.
That's fun. So as we kind of wrap up here a little bit, I'd love to get your thoughts on any kind of like key learning points from your time in the fellowship, and any advice you've got for folks who might be considering applying for the next fellowship.
So some of my key learning points I've learned so far in my experience with Pinnacle, ASM, FirstWatch, and Fitch Associates have been try. Just put yourself out there and try, and accept that you're not going to know. And that's the whole reason you're going to this, is because you are an emerging leader. You're not expected to know everything. You're not expected to have all the answers, but you are expected to show up and be present. And that, I think, is really one of the biggest things. And when I finally stopped worrying so much and I let myself be in the moment, when you're worrying, you're not present. You're thinking about the future, you're thinking about what's down the road. But when you're truly present, you can have an absolutely transformative experience. And my suggestion to applicants is, if you're on the fence about applying, just do it. Give it your all, be sincere, because even the application process itself, because it was very essay driven, was a wonderful reflective moment for me, where I got to really chew on the questions I was asked and give heartfelt and sincere answers back. And that alone was such a wonderful experience for me, to sit down and think about EMS and think about what I do and why does it matter.
It's wonderful to hear that the questions inspired reflection, because that means everybody who applies has the opportunity to get something out of it, even if they're not the one that's selected for the year. So tell us what's next for you.
So what's next for me is a year of action. 2024, I spent a lot of time training and learning between Pinnacle, ASM. I had actually several other classes I took as well. 2025 is focused on putting thoughts into action. One of the projects I'm working on right now is improving our system status posting plan and unit utilization hours with a data-driven safety dashboard that'll be available for all of our supervisors on duty. So we know we do have a blended department, and this gets a little bit technical, but we have 24-hour units and 12-hour high performance units. And we want to be good stewards of our team and their time on the clock and their productivity in our department. And how do I balance those two things as a leader are incredibly important. We have a duty to ensure our workforce is safe and productive and provides high quality patient care in a timely manner. And that really is the Jack Stout message in a nutshell, is providing excellent patient care and being excellent stewards of our resources. And blending those two things with what I've learned at ASM and Pinnacle will be my challenge for 2025. And I'm very excited for it.
Oh, I'm excited to see how things evolve. That is a beautiful encapsulation of Jack's kind of core message for the world, and it's that systems view that provides really good patient care, a really good place to work, and a viable and sustainable system from an economic and productivity perspective. Thank you for that, Rob. Any last words?
Well, I'm just going to talk about Mary, not too Mary to you, because there's a few things that she said there that I want to pick out from sort of my professional leadership training. Many of you know my background, and she talked about command presence, and it's an interesting thing that people think, well, what's command presence? Is it when you walk into the room and start shouting and screaming? No, it's absolutely not. It's exuding that confidence that you are the leader that people want to lean on, want to talk to, want to be with. And how do you develop that? Well, of course, it's everything that we just talked about, going through that self-development process to gain the confidence, to gain the knowledge, and actually to gain, the wherewithal to go in and lead. And I think that's how, you develop command presence. We probably need to rename it these days, but I know exactly what you mean, Mary. And also, I think a role of a leader also sometimes is just to think, because leadership is a cerebral activity as much as it is a physical one. And obviously, one of the things I picked out from there is that you have been thinking a lot. And obviously, that helps you prepare yourself and therefore your team to go forward. And that really encourages me, Mike, talking about Mary. But no, those were my takeaways that I picked out from that conversation.
Love that.
Thank you. I love that too. One other thing as a leader that I feel like, and I don't know if it's industry wide or how, maybe I'm just like still in like a little bit of a vacuum here, but when you said leadership is a cerebral activity, it truly is. Mm-hmm. And being a well-read leader is tremendously important. And I'm just scratching the surface of reading and becoming better at that. But read books about leadership, read books not about leadership, but doing something to enrich your mind is tremendously important. I can think of it is, it's small things. You can edit this out at will, but I read a fantastic book called Alone at Dawn, and it talked about an Air Force combat controller named John Chapman and his entire story and struggle. And in a nutshell, John missed the boat at every single moment of his career. He was either injured or not on rotation for deployments. And Alone at Dawn finally ends with when he does not miss the boat. And he ends up being on the first wave that deploys in Afghanistan and unfortunately dies on his last mission that he engaged in on Takur Ghar and was awarded the Medal of Honor in 2017 posthumously for his actions. But the point of that is reading and being a thinking leader is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And be well read is another big takeaway.
One of my 6 leadership principles I live my life by. The third one is learning. And the point here is there is never a day where you do not learn anything. It can actually be from a book. It can be from a life experience. It can be from an observation. It can be from the news. It can be from a good leader. It can be from a bad leader. But the point being is every day is a school day in the job that we do. And, folks should just realize that it may not be an academic achievement, but actually it's a life hack. It's a top tip. It's something that you take in from your daily operation, daily practice that's going to serve you and importantly, the folks that you work with every day. And so I'm with you.
Love it. Well, I would just end by encouraging all of our listeners to take it easy, but take it. Thank you for joining us on behalf of Rob, Mary, and I'm Mike Taigman with FirstWatch. Thank you for listening, and consider applying for the Jack Stout Fellowship yourself or encouraging other aspiring bright leaders in your world to do the same.